Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
I'm Jeff Cornwall, and this is the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today, my guest is Phil Gibbs. We'll be back to talk with Phil in just a minute.
Talkapolis programming is sponsored by the following. Highland Hills, a multicultural, diversified funeral home supporting the entire Davidson County community. Visit our website at www.highlandhillsfuneralhome.com or call us at 615-650-5555.
Welcome, Phil. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I first met you when you were launching eSpaces, and that was quite an innovation for Nashville at the time. There's been a lot of co-working spaces open since then, but you guys are really one of the pioneers doing that. Can you talk a little bit about where you got that vision and some of the ups and downs of those early years at eSpaces?
Yeah, great question. The idea came from some work I was doing several years ago around telework. I was involved with Doug Smith and Terry Bryant and Evergreen, and we were doing early stage kind of seed investing, and
Right.
A lot we were focused on was the idea of how do you deal with remote workers, because that was a big trend at that point, and of course continues to be the dispersed work where you are working from home, working from locations that aren't necessarily centralized at the company.
Right.
And so at that time, the government was developing telework centers, kind of circling Washington, that were designed for people to work for a day as opposed to driving downtown, saving energy, saving time, working close to home.
Yeah, I've driven that rush hour.
Yes.
That's probably a good thing to do there.
Well, the data showed that they weren't being used. And it was kind of strange. Why is that? This really makes sense. And you could go online and look at those centers, and they were dull, drab rows of cubicles in a dull, drab building. And you would think, why would anyone want to go and work in an environment like that?
So this model was something you felt had applicability here in Nashville? Is that kind of what spurred the eSpaces idea?
Yeah, when you would walk in a coffee shop or a Starbucks, a Panera Bread, you would see laptops open, people working, business being transacted, and it was a great environment, but it wasn't a great place to do business.
Right.
There were not the amenities that a business need: copier, printer, meeting rooms, conference rooms, privacy, those types of things. So, stepping back, it was kind of a no-brainer. If you could create that location that people could come to and work, and it had that casual, open feel of a coffee shop, and yet the amenities of an office, then it seemed like a winner. And it was one of those ideas that just would not go away, and
Right.
one of those things that just seemed like it would definitely be a winner.
Did you have any surprises when you launched here in Nashville, things you didn't anticipate that were maybe required some tweaks in the business model a little bit? Or
Yeah, I guess the biggest surprise, and of course as you continue to learn the innovation process, the entrepreneurship process, the customer product market fit is kind of the critical fit. And we thought the users of eSpaces would be young kids coming out of schools, grown up in coffee shops, worked in collaborative teams in universities, and would come out and
no, it's a bunch of old guys like me.
It is a real cross section
Yeah.
of people that have been drawn to it, which is great because you have the younger professionals, and then you have middle age and people who are retired and looking for other things to do and starting businesses. So it becomes really a great environment for work like that.
So like a lot of our guests on this show, we see this theme of people moving on and doing something new, and you've recently started a new endeavor. You want to talk a little bit about the innovation work that you're doing now?
Yeah, I am creating what I'm calling the Disruption Lab, which is focused on corporate innovation. across the country, and especially here in Nashville, there are a lot of resources focused on the individual, the small startup, what we traditionally think of as the startup. And Nashville, with the Entrepreneurial Center and Jumpstart Foundry and all of the resources here, what you've done at Belmont, great resources to help the startup community. But there are not a lot of resources focused on real innovation and entrepreneurship at the corporate level. And corporations, because of all the activity that's going on in startups, are going to face more and more competition. And some do a pretty good job at doing problem solving and doing some innovation that you would think of as sustaining innovation, small innovations. Some are pretty significant, but they're still moving up the value chain and really doing disruptive innovation that takes you outside of the normal value chain and disrupts a company or disrupts an industry. That's really difficult to do, and not many companies are good at that, and that's what we're focusing on, is helping companies do innovation, and especially disruptive innovation.
One of the things I've run into when I've done some work in that area is the challenge of dealing with the corporate culture and sort of the inertia that you get in a bigger organization. How have you thought about how you might be working with some of your clients to help even at that level?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key to it. Large companies are large companies because they're really good at executing.
Right.
And not necessarily good at starting.
Right.
And there are inherent problems and inherent within the processes and systems, the metrics that they use to measure what they're doing are really designed to prevent a typical startup, especially a disruptive innovation. If you normally evaluate projects on the basis of you've got to have a 40% margin, the typical, especially disruptive startup, is going to be pretty small in the beginning before it goes up the value chain. And they're going to decline it. They're going to reject it. There's no way it starts. So helping the leadership within an organization understand what disruption is, how you structure it, some different systems and methods to go outside of the typical structure, not necessarily go off and do a skunk works type of where you get away from the organization, but where you're linked to the organization, use the resource. What large organizations have is they have great resources, which typical startup would die for.
Right.
And yet those very resources are what prevent the large organization from innovating. So working through and identifying the processes, systems, policies, and that's the compensation system, it is the reward system, it's the metrics, the financial metrics that are used, it's the sales force.
Right.
The sales force doesn't want to go out and sell a product that's small. If they're used to selling large computer systems and along comes the laptop, they're used to a $100,000 sale, and now you're asking me to go sell a $2,000 product. So there are all of those issues that large corporations have to deal with.
There's actually a great case study right here in Nashville. When I first came to town, I used to get the founder, well, the original executive in charge of Caterpillar Financial to come over and talk to my students. And one of the reasons he said that they set up Caterpillar Financial here in Nashville was they knew, because it was so different than everything else that company did, it was an innovation within the company, they had to get it far enough away so that it could develop its own identity, its own culture, its own systems and processes.
Right, absolutely. But they still had the resources of Caterpillar to
and
back
still had
them
the
up.
connection and still had the lifeline. Well, I can't wait to get you back again and hear how that's progressing. So thanks for coming.
Very
in, Phil.
excited about it. Thanks for having me.
All right.